All right, so kayaking. Sun on your face, beautiful scenery, peaceful.
Hmm.
But then imagine getting that perfect aerial shot, right? Of you like gliding through the water
Yeah.
or capturing the whole landscape from a whole new perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we're diving into today, kayaking
Oh, it's
with
I
drones.
love it.
Using this awesome guide that you sent us, it's packed with tips and tricks, and it goes like way beyond just getting those cool
It
shots.
really does. I think it's fascinating how drones have really opened up this whole new dimension to experiencing nature.
Hmm.
For example, you can observe wildlife
Oh yeah,
from these unique angles without disturbing them.
right.
You can scout out like hard to reach fishing spots,
Hmm.
and all while capturing these just stunning footage of your journey.
Okay, so we're talking about not just like, oh, cool, I got a picture, but like practical applications.
Absolutely.
Okay, that sounds amazing. But before I get carried away and start planning my drone fishing expedition,
Right.
let's talk about the legal side of things. Nobody wants their drone confiscated.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
It's the middle of a trip.
there's definitely rules and regulations that you need to be aware of,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're flying over water. So, for example, did you know that some states
Okay,
actually
sure.
have specific restrictions on drone use,
Okay.
like in coastal areas or near sensitive marine habitats?
I had no idea. I thought, like, as long as I'm following, like, basic FAA guidelines, I'm good to go.
Right, and those are important. Uh, the FAA regulations are kind of like your starting point. But we always need to check for local and state laws too.
Okay.
Some areas, for instance, might require permits or have specific altitude restrictions,
Oh, wow. Oh.
depending on the environment and also the potential impact on wildlife.
Okay. So it's not just like avoiding
All
airports and
right.
staying below 400 feet.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. So what about things like privacy? Can I just film anything I want from
Mm.
the air?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's where things can get a little tricky,
Oh.
While you're generally allowed to film in public spaces, you still need to be mindful of people's privacy. You
Right.
can't just like zoom in on someone sunbathing on a secluded beach or, hover over like private property
Right.
without permission.
Yeah. I wouldn't want someone spying on me with
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
drone either.
Right.
So it's all about common sense, I guess.
Yeah.
Respecting boundaries.
Absolutely. Finding that balance between, enjoying the capabilities of what your drone can do and also being, a responsible citizen. It's really crucial also to understand how water reflections
Oh, yeah. I've heard about that.
can affect your drone's sensors.
So how do reflections like mess with the drone?
Well, water can actually trick the drone's altitude sensors into thinking it's higher or lower than it actually is.
Oh, okay.
And this can obviously lead to instability or even those unexpected drops. So you need to be, extra cautious when you're flying over water, especially near the surface,
I hadn't considered that. That's a good reason to be extra careful.
for sure.
Now, what about safety in general? I'm already imagining myself like tipping over and losing my drone to the depths.
Right. I mean, safety is paramount,
Yeah.
both for you and for your drone.
Mm-hmm.
So first and foremost, always wear a life jacket, when you're kayaking, regardless of whether you're flying a drone or not.
Right.
It's just common sense. Now, in terms of the drone itself, make sure you have a secure way to attach it to your kayak.
Okay.
Maybe like a dedicated mount or a sturdy strap.
Hmm.
You don't want to take in an unexpected swim.
Good point. I've definitely had enough close calls with my phone to know that anything valuable needs to be secured. Now, what about pre-flight checks? Are there any specific things I should be looking out for when I'm prepping my drone for a kayaking trip?
Absolutely. Before you even like set foot near the water, it's crucial to do a thorough pre-flight check. Make sure that your drone's battery is fully charged,
Mm-hmm.
and that you have, any necessary spare batteries on hand.
Okay.
And then, just inspect the drone for any damage, especially to the propellers and the sensors.
Okay. So charge the batteries, inspect the drone, anything else? What about like planning my flight path? Is that something I should be doing beforehand?
Yeah. Planning your flight path is essential, especially in a dynamic environment like the water. You'll want to kind of familiarize yourself with the area,
Mm-hmm.
identify kind of potential obstacles like, trees or power lines,
Right.
and make note of any restricted airspace.
Got it. So no, like buzzing around restricted areas or
Right.
playing chicken with low-hanging branches.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Now, before we launch into like the specific tips for drone operation,
Right.
what about like choosing the right equipment? Is my old clunky drone gonna cut it for kayaking, or do I need something like special?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it really depends on, the specifics of your old drone.
Okay.
Um, but generally speaking, there are a few key features that are particularly beneficial for kayaking.
Okay. I'm all ears. What should I be looking for?
Yeah.
Size, weight, waterproofing,
Yes. Yes.
fill the beans.
All of the above.
Yeah.
So ideally, you want a drone that's compact and lightweight, so it's easy to transport and launch from a kayak.
Okay.
Waterproofing is obviously a huge plus,
Right.
especially if you're kayaking in rough conditions
Mhm.
or near salt water.
Right.
And then there's the matter of battery life. We've already touched on that,
Mm-hmm.
but we can't overemphasize it.
Battery life is king, especially when you're out on the water.
Right.
And there are no, charging stations in sight.
Exactly.
So what's like a good flight time to aim for?
Well, for kayaking,
Mm-hmm.
I would say aim for a drone with at least 20 minutes of flight time,
Okay.
if not more.
Mm-hmm.
And consider investing in extra batteries,
Right.
just in case.
Right.
You never know.
Okay. So compact, waterproof,
Mm-hmm.
decent battery life. Got it. Anything else I should be on the lookout for?
Oh, yeah, there's more. Wind resistance
Hmm.
is another important factor.
Okay.
Kayaking often means dealing with gusts of wind.
Mm-hmm.
So a drone that can handle a breeze is crucial.
I hadn't even considered the wind factor.
Right.
But it makes total sense.
Hmm.
So to recap, compact, waterproof,
Yes.
good battery life, and wind resistance. Those are the key things
Those are your key things.
to look for in a kayaking drone.
Absolutely.
Now that we've got like the gear sorted,
Right.
let's move on to the actual like flying techniques.
Yeah, let's get into it.
You mentioned the water reflections earlier
Hmm.
and how they can affect the drone sensors.
Well-
Are there any specific techniques for dealing with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah, flying over water is a whole different ballgame
Yeah.
compared to flying over land,
Right.
and those reflections can be a real challenge.
Okay, so how do I avoid becoming another statistic of a drone lost at sea? What are the secrets
Right.
to mastering this, aquatic aerial dance?
Well, I think the key is, to fly slow and steady.
Okay.
You want to avoid any kind of sudden movements or aggressive maneuvers,
Okay.
especially when you're flying low over the water.
Yeah.
Remember, those reflections can mess with the drone sensors,
Right.
so you need to give it time to adjust.
So no like fancy flips
Mhm.
or drone acrobatics over the water.
Exactly.
Got it. What about maintaining line of sight? Is that even more important when flying over water?
Absolutely. Maintaining visual contact with your drone is crucial, both for safety and for legal reasons.
Right.
It's easy to get distracted by the beautiful scenery,
Right.
but you need to keep your eyes on the drone at all times.
Okay. Eyes on the prize, literally.
Right.
What about altitude?
Yeah.
Should I be flying higher or lower when I'm over the water?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And the answer is, it depends.
Okay.
You'll need to consider factors like, the surrounding environment, potential obstacles,
Right.
and any local regulations.
Mm.
But generally speaking, it's best to stay relatively low when you're flying over water.
Okay. So low and slow. Okay. Any other words of wisdom before I take to the skies or waters?
Just remember to be patient and to have fun.
Oh.
Don't expect to become a master drone pilot overnight.
Right.
It takes practice and experience.
Mm.
But with the right approach, you'll be capturing stunning footage in no time.
I love that attitude. Patient and fun.
Yeah.
That's what kayaking is all about.
Right.
All right. So we've covered like the legal stuff, the safety precautions, the gear selection, basic flying techniques.
Mhm.
What else do we need to know before we can confidently launch our drones from our kayaks and start capturing those, epic shots?
There are definitely a few more things to keep in mind,
Okay.
especially when it comes to actually operating the drone from a kayak.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What are some of the challenges and considerations
Yeah.
unique to drone operation from a kayak?
Well, for starters, you've got a much smaller and less stable platform to work with,
Yeah.
compared to flying from land.
I can definitely see how that could be tricky.
Mhm.
So how do you even launch a drone from a kayak? Do you just chuck it into the air and
Yeah,
hope for the best?
Yeah, not quite.
Yeah.
While hand launching is possible, it's generally not recommended for beginners
Okay.
or when kayaking, in rough conditions.
Okay, so what's the alternative? Do I need a special drone launching pad for my kayak?
A launching pad isn't absolutely necessary, um, but it can definitely make things, easier and safer, especially if you're working with, a larger or more expensive drone.
Right. Okay. So launching pad is a good option. What about landing? Is that just as tricky?
Landing can be even more challenging than launching,
Oh, wow.
especially if, the water is choppy.
I can imagine. So how do you avoid a watery disaster when
Well,
bringing your drone back down to the kayak?
the key is to approach the landing slowly
Okay.
and carefully, use gentle control inputs.
Hmm.
Um, and if you're using a launching pad, try to aim for the center of the pad for a smooth touchdown.
All right. Slow and steady wins the race. Got it. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
are there any other must-know tips or tricks
Sure.
for drone operations specifically from a kayak?
There are a couple more things that can make a big difference.
Okay, I'm all ears, so let's hear them.
All right. Well, for one, think about your kayak's positioning.
Yeah.
Try to position yourself so that you're kind of facing into the wind when you're launching or landing.
Okay.
This will give your drone a bit of extra lift and stability.
Ah, that's smart. Like a mini runway.
Exactly.
For my drone. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing wind direction is something I need to be super aware of
Oh, yeah.
when I'm out on the water.
Absolutely. You'll want to keep a constant eye on wind speed and direction
Mm.
and adjust your flying accordingly.
Yeah.
Remember, wind can be much more unpredictable over water than it is on land.
Right, those surprise gusts can really, really ruin your day. Okay, so positioning is key.
Yes.
Wind awareness is a must.
Rest.
Anything else?
Don't forget about battery management.
Yeah.
It's easy to kind of get caught up in the moment, and fly your drone until it's about to drop from the sky.
Right.
But that's a recipe for disaster.
Especially when you're out on the water.
Right.
And there's nowhere to land. So how do you avoid that dreaded low battery warning when you're miles from shore?
Well, the key is to be proactive.
Okay.
Before you even launch, have kind of a flight plan in mind
Okay.
and estimate how much battery life you'll need. And then, keep a close eye on your drone's battery indicator and start heading back to your launch point with plenty of juice to spare.
Okay. So it's like the turn back before you're hungry rule of hiking,
Exactly.
but for drones. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But what if something unexpected happens and you do have to land in the water?
Well, that's where having a waterproof drone really pays off. But even then, you'll want to retrieve it from the water as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
To minimize, any potential damage.
Okay, good to know. So we've covered,
Yeah.
gear, safety,
Mm.
the basics of flying over water.
Mm.
But what about actually getting those, amazing shots?
Yeah.
The kind that make people go, wow.
Yeah.
Any tips for composing epic drone footage from a kayak?
Yeah. That's where the real fun begins.
Okay.
And it's, where you can get really creative. One of my favorite things to do is use kind of the kayak's movement to my advantage.
Okay.
So try slowly paddling in a circle while your drone is hovering above you.
Okay.
This can create some really cool dynamic shots that showcase both, the kayak's movement and the surrounding scenery.
Ooh, that's a neat trick. I love how you can use the drone and the kayak together to create these unique perspectives. Any other tips for upping my, drone cinematography game?
Don't be afraid to experiment with different altitudes and angles.
Okay.
Get up high for a sweeping panorama of the coastline, then swoop down low for an intimate view of the water, rushing past your kayak. You can even try flying your drone through like narrow channels or under low-hanging branches
Yeah.
for a more, adventurous feel.
Okay, now you're just showing off. Those are some pro level moves.
Right.
But seriously, that's what I love about drone kayaking. It's like having endless possibilities for
Okay.
capturing like unique and breathtaking footage.
Hmm.
But with all this talk about like angles and maneuvers, I have to ask, what about birds?
Right.
They seem to have a love-hate relationship with drones.
It's true. Birds can be a bit unpredictable around drones.
Right.
The good news is most of the time they'll just keep their distance.
Yeah.
But, it's always best to be respectful of their space.
Right. We're guests in their world after all, so no chasing seagulls or dive bombing pelicans with my drone. Got it. Any other like words of wisdom for aspiring drone kayaking enthusiasts before we wrap up this episode?
Just remember, practice makes perfect.
Okay.
The more you fly your drones from your kayak, the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to experiment, try new things.
Right.
And most importantly, have fun.
I love it. Practice, experiment, and have fun. That's advice I can get behind.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm feeling inspired and ready to hit the water with my drone. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I have one last question that's been on my mind.
Fire away. I'm all ears.
Okay. We've talked a lot about like the technical aspects of drone kayaking, but what about the artistic side? How can I use my drone to tell a story, not just like capture pretty pictures?
That's a fantastic question.
Mhm.
And it's something that every drone pilot, whether they're, kayaking or not, should be thinking about. Because ultimately, that's what elevates drone footage from simply being kind of visually appealing. Right.
To being truly captivating.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more about this art of drone storytelling. What are like some of the key elements?
Well, just like any good story, you need a beginning, a middle, and an end. So start by kind of setting the scene, establishing your location
Okay.
and giving your viewers a sense of place.
So that could be like a wide shot of my kayak, like gliding through a scenic waterway.
Exactly.
Or maybe like a close-up of the sun sparkling on the water.
Yeah, absolutely. Use your drone to kind of capture those establishing shots that draw your viewers in and set the stage for your story.
Okay.
Then as you move into the middle of your story, think about, using a variety of shots to create a sense of movement and progression.
So that's where like those like cool tracking shots and dynamic angles come into play.
Precisely. Use your drone to follow your kayak as you paddle through like narrow channels.
Or around like rocky outcrops. Experiment with different speeds and movements to add, drama and excitement to your footage.
This is awesome. I'm already picturing these like epic drone shots in my head.
Yeah.
But what about the ending? How do I wrap up my drone kayaking masterpiece?
Well, it's just like a good book or movie. You want to leave your viewers with a sense of, closure or satisfaction. This could be a final breathtaking shot of your kayak silhouetted against like a stunning sunset or a close-up of you, paddling towards a distant island.
Wow, I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
Yeah.
This is so much more than just like pointing a drone at something and pressing record.
It is.
It's about creating a narrative, evoking emotions, and transporting your viewers to another place and time.
You got it. It's about using your drone as a tool to tell your story and share your unique perspective with the world. And when you combine that with the beauty and tranquility of kayaking, you have the recipe for something truly special.
I couldn't have said it better myself. This has been an eye-opening deep dive into the world of drone kayaking. And I'm feeling incredibly inspired to get out there and start putting these tips and techniques into practice. But before we wrap up this episode, I want to touch on something we haven't really discussed yet. It's all well and good to capture these stunning shots.
Right.
But what about sharing them with the world? Are there like any specific platforms or communities for like drone kayaking enthusiasts to connect and show off their work?
Absolutely. There's a thriving online community of drone kayaking enthusiasts out there.
Okay.
You'll find like dedicated groups and forums on on social media platforms, like Facebook and Instagram,
Right.
where people share their footage, tips and tricks, and connect with fellow drone pilots.
Oh, that's cool. I'll have to check those out. So it's not just about capturing the footage. It's also about sharing it
Yeah.
with a community who appreciates, the art and the skill involved.
Exactly. It's about connecting with like-minded individuals who understand the challenges and the rewards of drone kayaking.
I love that sense of community.
Yeah.
So besides like those online platforms, are there any other like resources or events that drone kayaking enthusiasts should know about?
Yeah, actually, a lot of drone manufacturers and outdoor retailers,
Okay.
they host like workshops and
Oh,
events
wow.
specifically for drone enthusiasts,
Mhm.
including, those interested in kayaking.
Mm, okay.
These can be great opportunities to learn new skills, connect with experts, and even like test out the latest drone models.
Wow, I had no idea those kinds of events existed.
Yeah.
I'll definitely have to keep an eye out for them. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I wanna circle back to something you mentioned earlier about respecting the environment.
Mhm.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of drone kayaking,
Right.
but it's important to remember that we're sharing these spaces with wildlife
Yes.
and other people.
Absolutely. It's crucial to be mindful of our impact on the environment
Hmm.
and to practice responsible drone kayaking.
So, what are some like practical steps we can take to ensure that we're being, good stewards of the environment while we're out there enjoying our drones?
Well, first and foremost, always research and follow any local regulations or guidelines
Okay.
regarding drone use in natural areas.
Hmm.
Some areas might have specific restrictions on flight times, altitudes, or even like the types of drones allowed.
Right. It's like checking the trail map before you go hiking. You need to know the rules of the trail.
Exactly. And just like, you wouldn't litter
Hmm.
or disturb wildlife while hiking,
Right.
the same principles apply to drone kayaking. So avoid flying over, sensitive habitats like nesting areas or areas where animals are congregating,
Mm.
and and always keep a safe distance from wildlife.
Okay.
Don't try to chase them or get too close, for a shot.
Makes sense. It's all about respecting, the natural environment and minimizing our impact.
Absolutely. And finally, remember to pack out everything you pack in,
Mm-hmm.
just like you would with any, outdoor activity. Leave no trace of your presence.
Okay. So follow the rules, respect wildlife,
Mm-hmm.
and pack out our trash.
Yes.
Got it. Any other parting words of wisdom for our drone kayaking adventurers?
Just remember to have fun and be safe. Drone kayaking is an incredible way to experience nature
Mm-hmm.
from a whole new perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So get out there, explore, and capture those breathtaking moments.
Mm-hmm.
But always, always prioritize safety and respect for the environment.
Well said. That's a perfect note to end on. So to recap, we've covered everything from gear selection and safety precautions
Mm-hmm.
to legal considerations and artistic techniques.
Right.
We've even explored the vibrant online community
Yeah.
of drone kayaking enthusiasts.
It's been a comprehensive deep dive into the world of drone kayaking.
It really has. And
Yeah.
now I'm itching to get out on the water and put all this knowledge into practice. So to all our listeners out there, whether you're, seasoned drone pilots or just starting out, remember, be prepared, be responsible, and most importantly, have fun. We'll see you on our next deep dive adventure.